Let's get right to it. Our Disruptor Series. Joining us now, Dr. Duane Hennen. He's running for Congress, 13th District in Ohio. He's a Christian. He's a conservative. He's pro-NRA. He's pro-life. And he's not for the Green Deal. And he is joining us now trying to pull the upset in Ohio. Tim Ryan running for president now.
One and the same.
I know, they're like the same, right? One in the same. Right, that's a Freudian slip if there ever was one. Dr. Hennen with us. Hey, Doc, so how are you going to win this race?
Well, I think there's a number of things that we really got to focus on. Number one is the American people. Trump had a winning victory because he was focused on the American people. And staying focused on that, focused on like immigration reform, building our wall. We got funding now, $5.7 billion to build the wall. Let's get it done. Things such as tax reform. That's going to actually help, the working class, the middle class people. Focusing on reforming education, bringing some life skills back into our education system. We're having kids graduate that don't know the very basics of getting, anything done financially. Bringing some financial training, financial literacy into the school system. It is just a matter of getting out there and getting the job done. We've had 17 years of Tim Ryan doing very little. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, very little. I've yet to really see anything noticeable in 17 years. So it's time to get him out, and it's time to go in there and start bringing jobs back to our area, focusing on small and medium businesses. A lot of our mills are gone. They're not coming back. A lot of, the agrarian areas, the agrarian businesses in our area, we really need to focus on that, building them up. Because we've got a lot of farmland that, hey, we can build that up. We can, whether it's producing soy or, whatever it is, because soy can be used for a lot of different things. Whether it's international, whether it's just here in our own country, soy is used for making foams, for different things like that. So we can do a lot of different things just to bring jobs back to our area.
Let me ask you this, Duane. Tim Ryan is running for president. If you're running for president, we've gone through this with congressmen running president. You spend very little time in the district. You don't really talk to your constituents. You have very little constituent service. You don't really care about what they think. You're on the national stage. How is it going to affect this race?
I think it's going to affect it. Well, see, that's a tough call because Tim Ryan's never really been in the district other than for photo ops. So it's not much different than what he normally does. It's giving him a lot of publicity on TV, but I don't say it's good publicity. His numbers are so low that he's kind of a laughingstock. We're seeing Democrats come over. I've got some Democrats that actually helped him on the campaign trails over the years. They're actually going to help me now. So I think that's a positive sign. And we've got a primary we're running too, basically against another guy, Lou Liris, that's maybe further left than Tim. So, I don't think that's going to be a big deal because he's an anti-Trumper. An anti-Trumper is not going to win. Bottom line, it's just, the Republicans won't vote for that. So, we're focusing kind of on both. But with Tim, I don't think it's going to help him. I think it's going to take some of the people away from him because they're seeing that he really doesn't care. Even his base is starting to see that he really does not care about our area. He just had an Instagram post out the other day talking about, the downtown areas, building up the downtown areas. Our downtown areas are like devastated. You go to Warren, Ohio, and, you just look at the businesses. They've all left. You're not building them up in our district. How are you going to do that nationally? You got to focus on your district and show that you're presidential material before you run for president.
All right, so, Duane, let me ask you a few questions on some policy. The president is going to sign and just negotiated a spending bill for the next 2 years. It's going to raise the deficit, the national debt, another over a 10-year period, another $4.1 trillion. How would you have voted on that?
I think it's like at the stage that we're at in our country, I think you're going to see the deficit go up some. If you compare that to what Obama done, it doesn't even come close. Obama spent more than all the past presidents combined. So it's, to think that he's not going to spend some would be kind of crazy. I think we need to really get, as Congress, actually get a budget that actually is doable, that's actually a balanced budget. That's Congress's job. And, they're not doing it. This Congress that we have right now is not producing any results. No results for the American people. They're producing results for immigrants, or trying to at least, or illegal immigrants, I should say. but they're not producing results that are for the American people. They're not producing a budget that's, what are we going to do? Just close the government down, maybe. I just think it's something that you're going to see a little bit of a raise in it. That's something we got to focus, and that's long term, bringing it down. And I'll say he's brought, it's not as much as Obama spent. So it's, to me, it's not a huge issue. Do I wish we didn't have to have that much? Yes, absolutely.
I'd have voted for it, and I agree
yeah,
with.
I would have too. I would have voted for it because I think we need to right now.
I agree with your thinking. Look, I don't want to add $4.1 trillion to the national debt, but Obama added $12 trillion. Look, I get it.
Yes.
We've got to get a handle on it, but government shutdowns in the middle of campaigns are a disaster for Republicans. So let's
That's
get
right.
Trump reelected, and then I'm confident in a second term with a Republican House, we're going to be able to fix this and start getting on a path to some sort of sanity that we're not on right now. So I'm 100% with you on that.
I would agree with that, and I think the thing is we've got to get a Speaker of the House when we become Republican in the House. We either got to get a Speaker that's actually going to stand up for things such as that. My vote's for Jim Jordan. I think he'd be the best Speaker that we've ever had. We need someone that's going to stand up against the corruption in government, stand up against all the lunacy of the left that's not willing to back down, to cave. And that's what we need, because you have a strong leader, you're going to have a strong House.
Well, that's what you need to do. And if you get in there, everybody's going to assume that Kevin McCarthy is going to be the Speaker. Here's my question. What has Kevin McCarthy done? What exactly did he do under Paul Ryan? What did he do when he was whip? He did nothing. So we're going to elect another Republican House, so now we can get Kevin McCarthy, who is like Paul Ryan, light with blonde
He would not
hair.
have my vote. He would not have my vote because, Paul Ryan should have never been in there.
Well,
Kevin McCarthy has been useless.
He's done nothing, and he'll continue to do nothing. But that's what the Republicans do, right? It's like they take the presidency, and then they get all these never-Trumpers in the White House, and it becomes a Marco Rubio administration, right?
Yes.
I mean, now they're going to take the House back if they do that. Then you get Kevin McCarthy. Then you're back to Paul Ryan and John Boehner. I mean, there's no difference between any of them.
Well, and that's why we really need to change the House. I mean, we have got to build a House that's strong. We've got to get people in there that are actually going to stick up for Trump. And that means when it comes to voting for a Speaker of the House, they're going to vote for someone that's going to stick up for Trump. If you're not backing Trump, then I'm not sure why you're even Republican right now. You're just being an obstructionist. You're just slowing the progress down. And we need to see some serious change within our government. And there's a lot of reform that needs done. And that goes across the board.
All right, Duane, let's get to the president's spat with Elijah Cummings over the president blasting part of his district, West Baltimore, saying it was just a rat-infested hellhole, basically. What was your take on that? I mean, a lot of people thought that the exchange was racist.
I don't believe it's racist. I think it's maybe leans more towards being factual. That, hey, you know what? And I think it's pointing out, and hey, Trump is, I'm a former pastor, so I don't always speak the exact same way he does with stuff. But he gets the point across that, you know what? We have some areas that really need changed. And that's what it's all about. It's about changing these areas. But if you don't point out that there's a problem, does a problem ever get fixed? I don't think so. Has Elijah Cummings done anything for his areas? No. Unless you're looking for trying to get more government handouts. It's not about getting more government handouts, because that doesn't solve any problems. That just makes people dependent on the government. And that's not how we're supposed to be. This is a government that's supposed to be we the people, and it's slipped away from that, and now it's a government that controls the people by doing such things like that. Giving the handouts and saying, once again, it's almost making people slaves again. And it's like that, to me, is just ridiculous, that we really need to get a handle on it. I would not call that racist, though, just like I would not call telling people, hey, to go somewhere to fix something, then come back and show us that you did it. That's not racist. It wasn't about race. It's about, hey, show us how you're a problem solver.
John Fredericks Radio Network, our Disruptors series. We're with Dr. Duane Hennen. He's running for Congress in Ohio's 13th Congressional District. That is currently the seat is held by Democrat Tim Ryan, who's running for president, and Hennen trying to make some headway there. let's get to your thoughts on the Federal Reserve this week. Duane, all but certain to cut rates in spite of a strong economy. This is a move that the president has been jawboning for, saying that the rate increase we had in last December, was probably a bad idea. And now Jerome Powell kind of responding to this, not that he's taking the lead from the president, but feels that the economy slowed its growth a little bit in the second quarter. Another rate decrease is really going to get the economy going again back up to the 3%. However, you're artificially pushing down interest rates. They're not allowed to go up to equilibrium. How do you stand on it?
Well, the Federal Reserve, now that's a tough issue. Because, you know what, I honestly believe the Federal Reserve needs a full audit on themselves.
Yes.
I think the Federal Reserve really manipulates a lot of things within our markets. I agree with Trump back when he said, they shouldn't have raised it. I agree with that. They shouldn't have raised it. This rate decrease, I think it'll help see some growth, which is a positive thing, especially coming up to election year. But, at the same time, the Federal Reserve, the IRS, there is so much reform that's needed within both of those. I'd go almost to the extent of saying, hey, let's repeal the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 and let's just get rid of it. But, at the same time you do that, you're messing with some of the economic standings, and you got to really take a close look at stuff like that. But, yeah, it's like I think they definitely need looked at, and they definitely need a microscope on them really at all times, which that hasn't been done really ever.
Duane, a court overturning the stay, giving the president the ability to spend the several $1 billion of military funding on the wall, a big win for the president this weekend. If you're elected to Congress, what is your vision for long-term legislative immigration reform? What type of a package would Duane Hennen be backing?
I'd be backing something that's closing the loopholes. I mean, there are way too many loopholes, and that's the problem. We have so many lawyers within Congress that write these things, and a lawyer knows how to put a loophole in anything you write, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, let's be straightforward with what we want. We've got to get a grip on the entire immigration problem. My opponent here that's running it as a Republican, he's actually more of a socialist, but he actually, makes comments about Trump, about, him locking up, all these people. Well, listen, if I do something illegal here, I would probably get locked up. That's the way it works. If you're doing a crime, you get locked up. We really need to crack down on the flow of it. Hey, build the wall. We've got some funding for it. Let's get the wall built. Let's get immigration reform done where it actually changes the whole process. Maybe makes it a little bit easier in some aspects for those that are, that we want to get in. Let's make it maybe speed up the process for those that we actually want to get in. But there are some, hey, we can't take everybody. If we continue to take everybody into our country, our economy will collapse. We're paying, look at what California is doing. Paying, we're going to pay all their medical benefits. We're going to pay, food. We're going to pay housing, stuff like that. That's ridiculous. Let's do that for our vets before we do that for an illegal immigrant.
Well, you're exactly right there. We're with Dr. Duane Hennen. This is our Disruptor Series. He's running for Congress, Ohio's 13th district. He's a Republican that is currently represented by Democrat Tim Ryan running for president. There'll be a Republican primary for that. Hennen is, in our mind, the only candidate that can take Ryan on. Duane, we're going to go to a quick word from our sponsors. When I get back, I'm going to ask you the big question. Stay with us.
He's your Godzilla of the truth in America.
Run! It's Godzilla!
No gibberish or nonsense, just common sense. And now back to the John Fredericks Show.
Okay, Duane, how do you keep jobs in your district from going away?
How do you keep jobs from going away? Honestly, that is a tough question because, the government cannot really control a corporation to the full extent that, hey, you've got to stay here. I mean, if you want a socialist government, I guess you could do that. It's freedom, that a corporation can pick up and move. Unfortunately, we've allowed it to go so far by, hey, they just move just for reasons that, hey, we're going to go to Mexico to get a, cheaper, budget, basically, to get cheaper labor costs, whatever. That we can kind of change, because we can have, tariffs coming across the border on things that go down. That would be a way to do that. Also, making it desirable, making it where, hey, people want to come here. We are a state that, unfortunately, if you look at the GDP, 3.42, we are like, I believe it's like 1.0, I want to say it was 4.8 for the state. And our district might be a little bit lower than that, which is terrible. And it's because all these big industries are leaving. We just saw GM, pull out. In GM, that's been a process. They've been planning on doing that. The writing was on the wall for years. So, I don't think, I don't think there's much Trump could have done about it. I don't think there's much Tim Ryan could have done about it. You could, work on some legislation to try to get them to stay, or, a lot of taxpayers don't like seeing, hey, let's give them a bailout or give them a stimulus to stay. Taxpayers are tired of paying for these companies that just take the money and then end up running anyways. That's what GM did. They took the money and they ran. So that's a tough question. I think you really have to support like the smaller businesses, the smaller, mid-sized businesses. Those are the anchors of your area. If they stay strong, it keeps employment. It also brings other businesses in. Competition's a good thing. And, we see huge businesses that are just forming. My wife and I have been in the mattress business for years now. And, you see big conglomerates like Tempur-Pedic buying out Sealy and Stearns & Foster. So they're all one company now. It's Tempur-Sealy. You see Simmons that bought out Serta. So you got two really huge companies. Now, how does a small company compete against that? And most of these are importing foams. They're, it's not 100% American made. It's maybe American assembled. Let's get back to doing American made. Let's get back to, there's foams in this country that you can use for things like that. Let's get back to supporting the American workers. If we can get companies and build them strong, I think you need obviously tax reform, which would mean reducing it for corporations, but I think you reduce it for the workers as well.
I've only got a couple of minutes, Dr. Hennen. Let's talk specifically about the GM Lordstown plant. That's really where I was going with this. I gave you an opportunity to address it generally, and I'm going to get specific. If you were in Congress right now instead of Tim Ryan, what would you do to save those jobs at GM Lordstown?
Well, number one, you've got to sit down with both sides. You got to sit down with the unions. You've got to sit down with the corporation and kind of help work that, maybe mediate that, get something accomplished that actually benefits the workers. Unfortunately, everyone wants to, Democrats always talk about corporate greed. Let me tell you something. Greed is a normal thing for every one of us. Greed, whether it's from the workers, greed, whether it's from the unions. Unions take a lot of money out of the pockets of the workers as well, on the average of about $1,200 to $1,800 a year. Let's talk about those issues. Is there anything they could give that would, make it more enticing for GM to stay? I think most workers, hey, you'd rather stay where you're at or stay close to where you're at than see your job go away, because there's just not jobs out there in our area. So unless you move out of town, and that's what we've seen over the years.
You guys got to figure out a way. If you're in Congress, you've got to figure out a way to keep those jobs there. The president should be going there himself and meeting with all the leaders concerned, including the head of GM. He should go, because he went there and said he would save these jobs, and now they're going away. Yeah. And so everybody's got to get together and make that. What I'd like to do is I'd like to get together with the president and go with him and say, hey, let's get this nailed down. Right, let's get something that benefits the workers and focus on the workers. I got to roll. Hennen for Ohio 2020